Welcome to the After Dark podcast with Anthony James and Konrad. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
Hello and welcome to the After Dark podcast. I'm Anthony James and that's Konrad.
Hello!
And that's Emmett.
Hey! I'm in the cave too.
Well guys, I'll start with Konrad because otherwise we'll get confusing. How are you this week?
I'm very good. I'm excited to be back with Dark again. It's like an old friend that's come for dinner.
Yeah. It's like an old t-shirt you found in the back of your wardrobe and you think, you know what? I used to like wearing that one. And we do have a t-shirt available at redbubble.com. Could you please go to the link?
Great segue.
Go to the link in the description. All right, Emmett. How do you feel? Like, obviously you've seen the first season now. We're going to get into your overall thoughts in a minute, but how do you feel being here on the After Dark podcast for the very first time?
I'm very happy to be here. It's like a new friend that you've just met, and you find that you connect very well, and you want to hang out all the time. And now me and Konrad are at different stages of our relationship with Dark.
It's not like where you meet someone at a party and you think, I'm getting on really well with them, but then they walk away to get a drink and you immediately forget their name and start panicking as to how you can kind of force it into conversation to get them to say their name again.
Well, for me, it's like the worst thing is not the at a party. The worst thing is when you start a new job and you've actually heard them say their name like 3 or 4 times, and you're like 2 months in or something, and you're like, I really need to know their name. You know?
Yeah, I can't ask again.
That's giving me like echoes of anxiety of how many times that's happened in the past.
That's never happened to me. I don't know what that's like.
Which is a good segue for me to be like, if I get anyone's name wrong during this, guys, please be patient with me, because like this again is my first time watching Dark, and I am atrocious with names and faces. So it's
you've got nothing to worry about there. Like on Dark Discussions, I have already misnamed characters plenty of times, and I've seen everything. So like you're in good company.
Good. I'm glad I'm with other fellow cannot remember name boys.
There was one conversation where we were talking about a certain character, and Anthony introduced it by talking about their son, who's a character called Helga, and I was speculating on the name of this character, and I suggested that this character was also called Helga, which is obviously not true. So that's the very low bar that I've set for sort of knowledge retention when it comes.
I've got an idea. I think in the last in 3 weeks' time or 2 weeks' time, I suppose, when Emmett's doing season 3, what we could do now, this will be unfairly weighted to Konrad, but I'll do like a little Dark quiz and see who gets the high score.
God.
Okay. Well, we can do that.
It will be weighted to Konrad because he will have seen it twice by then. But I have faith. I have faith in Emmett. I think he'll be alright.
I'll give you a challenge. I'll do my best.
Yeah.
I would usually, like when we with Sisyphus, I would usually go and check the characters' names and stuff like that to make sure I'm getting them right. But obviously with Dark, because I'm only on the first season, I specifically didn't do that because I didn't want to get spoiled for anything, which I could have been by looking at the casts. So like I've avoided doing that where possible.
Yeah, that's probably the best bet. I remember Konrad was like looking up the meanings of names and stuff whenever he was in the first season.
Very good.
So so you can do that. But I'd say be very wary. If you're googling a name, don't Google it with the word dark, because that would be dangerous. Yeah. All right, guys. So before we get into it, let's just do a few plugs then. Emmett already mentioned there Sisyphus. Sisyphus is a time travel show, South Korean time travel show, which is absolutely bonkers. Absolutely love it. Emmett and I are covering it episode by episode every Wednesday on the channel. Not like a full form podcast, just 10-15 minutes, just give our thoughts on it. If you want to go through that show with us, let us know. It's really, really good fun. As well as that, if you could subscribe on audio apps, that would be great. It's just the After Dark podcast there. If you could subscribe on YouTube at the Culture Cave, that's what it's called there. Give the video a like. As I said, there's a t-shirt link in the description if you want to support the channel. There's also an email address, adpodmail@gmail.com, if you want to get in touch with us. There's been a few people who got in touch with us recently. I forgot the password. Apologies for that. We're on it now. We're on the ball now. We'll be getting into, we'll be replying to those people very, very soon. Sorry about that. Well-oiled machine here. And thank you very much. Also, make sure that you are going to the poll that's on the channel and giving me your thoughts about what you want the next theme to be, because we're going into Westworld. That is, unless the OA gets announced for season 3. I'm hopeful. We're going into Westworld. I think Konrad's
I've already submitted Kid Rock. I know it's not license free, but I think we should get in touch with the kid and see what he says.
Yeah, get in touch with the kid.
I'm a cowboy. No, wait, actually, I can't remember how his version of that song goes.
I'm a cowboy. That one.
That's the Bon Jovi one.
Oh, yeah. The Bon Jovi one, I would go for that one instead, to be honest.
Yeah, we could do that, but we might be riding steel horses. I don't know. I've not seen enough of Westworld to confirm that, but it certainly seems like it could be apropos.
Yeah, exactly. All right, okay, guys, we're going to get into it. So, okay, I don't know who to throw this to. We're going to throw to Konrad because that's just the normal way. Konrad, are you ready to get into it?
My name is Kid. Yes, I'm ready.
Oh, let's break it. Damn!
Movies. Oh, sorry, wrong podcast. Dark. Let's do it. We are going to be talking about Dark Season 1. So in the comments, if you could spoiler tag, if you're new to the show, the way we spoiler tag on YouTube is we say spoiler, and then enter, and then say your comment. So you have to click read more to see it. Okay, so I think we'll want that, because I want Emmett to read the comments because he wants to hear all your lovely voices. Having said that, we don't want it to be spoiled, because the whole point of this podcast is that he doesn't know what's coming. So, Konrad, obviously there's a lot of the questions are probably going to be pointed at Emmett here, but at any point you want to jump in, you just feel free. This is your podcast too.
Yeah. I've got my theory matrix locked and loaded to pluck from. Should it come up?
That's a fantastic idea, actually, because I'm sure Emmett would love to know like what your ideas were in the first season as well. Now, you're in my position now, Konrad. Sometimes when we were going through it, I would tell you what my theories were, even if they were correct. But I would also try to mislead you, so you wouldn't know if they were correct. So you've just got your Anthony hat on now. So
yeah. I get to manipulate Emmett in a fun way now.
Yeah.
User my Claudia and Noah, just like sort of giving me the information that you need me to have, but not all of the information, you know.
He's getting the references already, Konrad. I'm loving it.
Yeah, he's we're off to a good start.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Emmett. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of time now. You don't have to. You can ask us questions. We can talk as well. But I mean, I'm going to ask you just what are your overall views of the show before we get into the nitty gritty of it.
Oh, it's a great show. Absolutely loved it.
All right, moving on.
Yeah.
See you next week.
See you next week. That was After Dark podcast. I was nervous going into it because you know when like you get told so much about a show being great and stuff like that, you worry that you're gonna be like the one dissenter that's gonna be like, I didn't quite like it. No, but like I got into it like almost immediately, like just with like the way that it's shot, the way that it like looks, and the way that it feels, just watching it, and like it was just really hard. And like I'm not usually someone who like binge watches stuff. I like to like take things quite slowly while like watching it, but like with Dark I was like I want to know what happens next, like almost immediately, and it was hard. It was very addictive, and then very hard when we got to the end of season 1 to be like, and now we stop. Because I can't watch any further until we do this podcast.
That's really interesting, actually, because Konrad had the complete opposite. Obviously, we did it week by week, episode by episode. So, Konrad, I'd love to hear. Like Emmett just talked about, like really wanted to see the next episode. Obviously, you felt that too, but you weren't allowed to. So, how did that feel?
I think, to be honest, it didn't. What do you mean specifically, like the jump between seasons, or
no? I mean the jump
general?
episode by episode.
I think in some of them I did. It varies from episode to episode, because I think there are certainly some episodes of Dark where like they set up really explicit cliffhangers for what you expect to happen next. There are some which set up cliffhangers which seem like they're going to happen in the next episode, and then they don't happen in the next episode. In fact, that character's not even in the next episode. We'll arrive at that when we come to it. But I didn't. I because I'm not a massive consumer of TV shows, generally speaking, I don't necessarily have the same compulsion to like binge watch them. I'm far more of a kind of like watch 2 hours of something, then put it down and go do something else, because I have a terrible attention span. So it wasn't too bad for me, actually. But I mean, even so, there's still that kind of pull to watch more, because it's good television fundamentally.
Yeah,
I think you and I are quite similar in that regard, Konrad, in the sense of like I will. Usually with most shows, that is what I'll do. Like I'll maybe watch an episode, give it some time, digest it, like make sure that I've got everything that I need from it. Whereas my partner Antoinette, she is much more of a binge watcher. She just wants to, and she gets real frustrated with me on that front. But like, because obviously I had to do it in a week, and also because it was very, very engaging, I had no issue sort of binge watching Dark, which was great.
So Antoinette was loving the fact that you had to watch it all in one go.
Oh yeah, she was so annoyed when we had to stop for the season break, but it was just very, because it's like Dark is such like a little, obviously I'm speaking to the converted, preaching to a choir here, but like it's such a jigsaw puzzle sort of thing where like you're adding little bits to it, and like you just like I don't know, but like I love puzzles and stuff like that, so like getting to like find the next bit of the puzzle and get to piece it in and be like, oh okay, so that gives context to that, and really changes your views of certain parts of the show. It was very engaging in that way.
Yeah.
The way that Dark expands its scope is about as good as any other show I think I've ever seen, without giving too much away about where it's going to go.
With already Emmett has seen that there is an extra timeline being added, because he's seen the post-apocalyptic world where the woman says "Welcome to the future," hits Jonas with the gun.
Welcome to Earth, and then and steals his spaceship.
Yeah,
I don't know why that reminds me of that so much, like that. But every time I see that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's like from Independence Day.
Yeah, it's because it's the most iconic version of hitting something in the face with your gun and announcing yourself. Welcome to Earth.
Is that Will Smith says that?
Yeah, he punches the alien.
I think is it because the scarred lady looks a lot like Will Smith, or is it because Jonas looks a lot like the alien?
I think it's the latter.
Or is it the welcome to? Is that
a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B? I think in this case. Also, like, can we just? I mean, I don't want to jump ahead too much here, but. Hitting someone in the head with a gun is a pretty good way to kill them.
Hurts.
Like, like I'm always like, whenever people do that in shows, I'm always like, you might have just killed that person. Like, there are easier ways to knock someone out.
Yeah, especially because like he was surrounded by all these people, you could just drag them. Yeah. Like, what was the did he seem real aggressive? Like Jonas has like the biggest puppy dog eyes of a person I have ever seen. He's not a fighter at this stage of his life. I don't think he's gonna like really struggle against these hard torn post-apocalyptic warriors. It's like you just hit him in the face essentially with a steel bat. Like imagine if that was the thing that broke the Ouroboros like circle, if you know what I mean. It's like, oh god, I killed him.
No, you haven't seen season 2 yet. Jonas actually has a huge hit in his face the rest of the show.
Yeah. Well, again, you see it in someone else's face, and that sort of gives it away in a weird way.
He wears an eye patch for the rest of the show. Punished Jonas.
Yeah, he's like a pirate. You have eye patch on. He's actually both eyes are functional. Eye patch is on. Then when he goes into raid a ship, he changes the eye patch so he's already acclimatized to the dark.
He loses his light, so he has to use it for when he's in the Kiev. So he's just like pop. Pops it open and is able to navigate around.
Okay, so we're jumping around an awful lot here, but I just want to ask you. You just mentioned the light, right? The light. So when you saw that light, did that give you future vibes straight away?
Oh, it gave me like, because it's the design of it looks very futuristic in the sense of like this is a fun thing with sci-fi, because it's really interesting when you go back and watch sci-fis of different eras and how they depict the future, because it's so influenced by the technology of the time and the look of the technology of the time. So like the light in that sort of gave me like odd like iPod vibes to it, in the sense of like it's like white and like sort of like silvery and like it looks very sleek. But like it looks like very much like a depiction of what we think the future will look like when it comes to technology. So like I was like that seems like it came from not modern day, especially because it's got like that cool sort of touch ability to like affect the light.
Yeah, I was hoping
to be honest as well.
Yeah, if it was like made in made in the 80s or something, it would have been a clap on light, clap on, and then pick it up.
Yeah, anytime something is like touch sensitive and when you touch it, it goes like that. That's a sign of sci-fi.
Sci-fi. Like honestly, if I was Jonas, I think like Dark would have ended on that episode, because I just would have spent the rest of the goddamn season just being like,
turning it on.
I would have missed the rest of the mystery, because I would have been too focused on my goddamn light and how fun it is to do that.
It's the next fidget spinner. It's the new fidget spinner, basically. You know.
Maybe that is something in the future as well. It's
Dust-
like it's
dust
a light
figure
plus
spinner.
a fidget spinner. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to hear your thoughts about the. There's a few aspects of the creation of the show what I want to hear about. So, how did you feel about that? They kind of had like 3 different pilots in this show. They had the first episode, which was the real pilot, and then they had like episode 3, where the whole thing was just with new characters in the 80s. And then, if that wasn't enough, in episode 8, they did the same thing again, but in the 50s, where every character was just in the 50s, obviously except for Ulrich at that point, and Mikkel in episode 3. What did you think about that? How they just kept resetting in a new timeline?
Yeah, it's because obviously they like lead you into it slowly and expand the different timelines. But it's great, like, you know, getting to, because a big part of Dark is obviously the mystery, but it's also the interpersonal relationships between people. So being able to like see different snapshots of their life and how that has influenced who they became is like so important to like their like character development and stuff like that. You get to see why these people have like really bad relationships in modern day, or why they are close to certain people. So I did enjoy that, and like getting to see little shithead Ulrich when he was a teenager is also very engaging. So I do love that because it like
careful. There are some members of our audience who hopefully they might be gone now because we did the OA. Maybe they went off, but they do not like us talking bad about Ulrich. I don't know why.
He's the most alpha of the 80s teens.
Yeah, but it's one of those like I say shithead with the most affection possible.
Oh, I do.
He's such a little he's such a little dickhead that it's weirdly engaging.
I mean, he dates a girl who threatens to clobber people. Like, he's so clearly in like the bully relationship. Like, I feel like if you know, they're very clearly the bad guys in an 80s movie. I feel like
he was forgetting when he later on redeemed himself, like by cheating on his wife and like beating a little child's head in. Like, he redeemed himself in the eyes of the fans, basically.
Yeah, it's so funny to me because like Ulrich is a very engaging character, and it's very funny because like we're obviously referencing something very near the end of the show, but it's funny to me that like that moment is such a like intense moment, but at the same time you can. In most shows, that would be the moment where that character is completely irredeemable. Like, you know, they just attempted to kill it. But, like, in the context of everything that we know, it's like, I understand. I don't agree with what he did. He was regardless of what's going on, he was attempting to murder a child. Yeah. But you can, like, see how he ended up at the conclusion where it's like, this is a terrible thing I have to do. But it's the baby Hitler, you know, not to make the...
We've talked about this at length,
except the comparison where it's like, if I do this, I could save all these people, and like he makes the horrible decision, but not realizing, obviously, that is what causes the events to happen. You know,
so Command and Conquer Red Alert taught us that if you go and kill baby Hitler, a worse version will spring up in his place. It's deterministic.
Damn it, Albert Einstein!
Damn you, Einstein! I'm glad you got that reference.
I will say this is like my conclusion to that whole baby Hitler argument. Then we can sort of move on here because we've talked about this at length, and I know that there's nothing that gets the Ulrich fans going like a baby Hitler reference. But I personally, the way I feel it is, Ulrich, in order to kill his baby Hitler Helga, he became Helga, right? So he had to do the same thing that Helga did to defeat Helga. It's not the same as the baby Hitler joke. The baby Hitler analogy, because in the baby Hitler analogy to be the same, you would have to kill 6 million Jews. Because that's what Hitler did. Killing one man is not the same as killing 6 million Jews. But beating a child is the same as stopping someone beating a child.
Yeah. Well, the only thing is, like, it's no, obviously I just used the baby Hitler thing because that's the common parlance discussion. But it's like killing... Because he essentially believes that Helg is a serial killer. He's come to the wrong conclusion because he doesn't have all the pieces of the puzzle, and he doesn't know about certain characters. So he thinks that he's stopping more deaths than he would cause by murdering one person. So, and obviously, even if it was only one person, to him, even if it only was only Mikhail and or only his brother, he would still probably make the same decision because personal relationships, being like, you know, I need to save my brother, I need to save my son, you know, so he would probably maybe make the same decision. But it's just, again, it's that tragic, dramatic irony that you get in a lot of time travel shows, where your attempt to stop the future is what ultimately causes it, because obviously he cracks the poor boy on the head and then leaves him exactly where he needs to be to end up in what I assume is going to be the position that causes him to essentially be manipulated by Noah and used as essentially a Ponzi in this larger scheme that he doesn't understand.
He's heavy.
You know?
Yeah, he's heavy.
He's heavy, yes.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think just, guys, as a PSA, right, public service announcement here, if you are ever involved in time travel and you need to go and kill a child, if you have access to time travel, like that tunnel, take the child, put him in a different timeline, okay?
Yeah.
Yes!
That's what he could have done.
Yeah, this is one thing, like, this is a thing that comes up in time travel shows a lot, where it's like the baby, because it's the moral quandary that everyone wants to. Would you kill baby Hitler? It's like, would you kill the serial killer?
No, just make him a Zoomer.
Yeah, make him a Zoomer.
Yeah.
It's like put him in a
TikTok.
different timeline. Like, you know it's possible. You know what? Just pick him up. Like, I don't know, choke a child out. That's not part of the PSA. Bring the child to a different time period. Put him in. Do what happened to your own son. Put him into like the foster care system, and that will change things. It's much more efficient than like attempting to crack someone's head in. It's, and it also leaves a lot less blood all over your body, so that you won't be pulled over by the police.
Take Hitler, right, when he was like literally like a baby, and give him to a Jewish family in the 80s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wouldn't have done that. And if he was, you just say to them, "Here, watch him. He's a bit of a psycho, that one." And they'll get him put away when he's 7 years old.
Yeah. just put him somewhere, or raise him yourself. I don't know. There's a lot of other options than crack a skull.
Like put it this way: in the year 2019, if you'd put Helga in a foster care system, the first time he said a bird looked beautiful when it was dead, geez, there would be sirens going. Like they would have him down at the hospital. Yeah. Anyway.
It is funny that in that episode, Aegon in his younger form has that little conversation with the other detective, being like, "What makes a person a killer? Like, what is it like? Are you just born that way, or is it circumstance?" And then the end of the episode basically has, we see that circumstance can make you a killer or an attempted killer.
Well, actually, that's a good question though. They're sort of bringing in questions of the deterministic method of time travel. Yeah, so maybe this has all happened before. So if that was the case, Ulrich then was born a killer because everything is determined. So yes. I think Konrad and I have talked about this at length, about this being, especially in season 1, we were like, is like the idea of even a stranger saying, and actually locking himself in the cell again, in the bunker. The idea of everything being determined, and everyone's doing the same thing again, thinking they're changing it. So, did you come down on the side of the fence, Emmett? What do you think?
Oh, it's the big discussion when it comes to any time travel shows, where it's like, can you actually change the future? Is it possible? And it's a conversation we've been having a lot in Sisyphus as well. Mm-hmm. With Sisyphus, because it seems a lot more lighthearted a lot of the time, and it's such a different tone to Dark. It's such a mood whiplash watching Dark and then watching Sisyphus.
Yeah.
I believe it's more possible that time can be changed, whereas Dark has this sort of moody atmosphere, and I could believe that it would end in the situation that you can't break time. Time is like a circle, but I'm holding out hope that I don't know, maybe Jonas, the older Jonas, knows more than he is letting on, in the sense of, because everyone people seem to think he's being manipulated by either side to do stuff. I'm wondering if he's maybe playing along and maybe is aware of more, because he keeps telling his younger self that he's important to all these situations. So I'm holding out hope that perhaps the circle can be broken.
Okay.
Because otherwise it's going to be a very tragic show for me, and I'm going to have my heart broken several more times before the end of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. So what did you think? Okay, we're going to talk about some of the reveals now. So first of all, did you sort of predict before it happened that Michael was Mikkel?
Yeah, yes, I predicted. Me and Etta were obviously backing and forth on a lot of discussions, but I was like, yeah, it has to be Mikkel, because one, again, we talked about this in private before, but you'd mentioned in the casting how they're really, really good at getting people who look like what the older version of one of the other actors would look like, and there's a good sort of continuity between them. And I'm usually bad with faces, but even I could recognize I could see this person, aging up into this person.
Yeah.
So it's like just like looking at the brief glimpses that we did get of Michael, and the fact that the names are very similar, and the show would be over if they got Mikhail back.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh no, they're not going to get him back. And if they don't get him back, and he's developing this relationship with Ignace the nurse, who was the mother figure of Michael, oh no. And it was like, the sort of piecing that together, being like, oh no, he's not coming back. He's going to live in the 80s, and they're never going to find him.
Do you expect that to be like the kind of I guess main narrative thrust going forward then, that Mikkel is still going to be the focus?
That's a good question, actually.
Because you are kind of right. Like, I suppose if they could get him back, it would stop everything.
Yeah. If they could, I think it's going to definitely come up a bit. Well, because like obviously when we go into the little the three-way path that leads to the different timelines. I also love, just a very quick thing, I love when they open the door where it's like opening like an airlock or something like that, because it's like a pressure thing, from the different timelines where like the air is hitting them. I love that. It's a lovely little effect where like essentially they're opening a bubble into like another little time zone, and like there's a difference in pressure between it. Very lovely touch. But like I when so obviously Jonas I think turns right and ends up in the 80s. Like I registered being like, oh, there's another path. I imagine that was probably going to lead to a different time period, probably maybe earlier or in the future. Obviously it gets confirmed that the path to the left leads to the 50s.
Yeah.
So like when Ulrich got to the crossroads, I was like, he's going to turn left, because if he goes to the 80s, he's going to find Mikkel, and he's going to bring his son back, because he's not going to give a shit about any of this like time travel bullshit. He's going to be like, no, that's my son, I'm taking him home. So like I understood that he's going to end up in the 50s, or like he's going to end up in a different time period. Confirmed it was the 50s in a bit. So like just watching him go down that path. So it's like, because there's going to be like a two sides to the bring Mikkel back thing. There'll be the people who want to get him back to his home, and then there's the people like, no, Mikkel must stay here to have Jonas, because Jonas is important. So there's probably going to be at least some of that, but I think almost Mikkel's life is now sort of, to a certain extent, stuck there. If he does get back to the future, he's either going to have to come back himself willingly, or be dragged back by someone else.
Well,
so
sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's interesting you mentioned being dragged back. Do you have any thoughts on how he ended up there?
Well, so this is something because I'm not a scientist. Just preference that. But I do find certain scientific concepts very interesting. So I imagine if time is like time travel is possible, the energy around it would probably be one of the interactive forces of the universe. Which includes things like the electromagnetic spectrum and strong weak force, which has a lot of like the nuclear waste there is a big source of energy. So I think my understanding of it is that obviously the three-way path is the easiest way and the most consistent way to get between the different timelines, but I think like the time effect leaks outwards into like the cave itself at different points. Okay. So, like, when you go through different sections of the cave, sometimes you can find yourself walking through that bubble and, like, ending up in a different point in history. Or, like, because we see, obviously, like, at one point when Mikhail is in the cave and he's calling, like, Ulrich can hear him. He can hear him. And then also there's the dog. I forget the dog's name. Gretchen. Which I think people can forgive me for.
Gretchen.
Gretchen, she goes running through the gate and ends up in a different time period as well. So obviously she likely didn't open the door, and I don't know if anyone would have specifically picked up Gretchen.
I don't know. We never saw Gretchen's paws. Like, she might have thumbs. We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've seen a velociraptor open a door. Why not a small dog?
Yeah.
Just picks up the dog. Clever girl.
They're coming through the windows, and they just say like, just shotguns.
We go another 33 years into the future, and dogs have just taken over, and Gretchen is their evil overlord. No, so I think maybe that the bubble sometimes leaks out into other parts of the Kiev,
Okay.
and that that's how people can get lost in the Kiev and end up in different periods without maybe necessarily intending it. In the same way that, like, because another big thing in the show is obviously the nuclear waste, like radiation leaks out of those, and I think it could be a similar effect. So I think that's where my head is, being like, like it has this is contained to the three-way path, but it can leak outwards.
Did they mention? Did they mention in season 1 what the nuclear waste was called? I can't remember if it was in season 1. I'm pretty sure it was. You might not remember the name, but did you see? Did you see anyone actually using it?
Yes, so they use the nuclear isotope, or whatever it's called, in the device, the time travel device. So
cesium-137 is what they called it.
Cesium-137. So cesium-137 it seems to be linked to the time travel thing. So again, if time is real in this context, and it is an interactive force, it would make sense to me that it would also link in with other interactive forces, which nuclear energy does tie into. So and the power plant is obviously so important to the story itself, because our first time period that we're in is when it's being built, and the latest time period we've been shown is the destruction that was caused, assumably when they had a Chernobyl-esque incident that seems to raise the town and probably a lot of the surrounding area. And we've already seen that the police chief of the modern era, she as a child found all these dead birds, and also found birds as an adult, and they have all these spots similar to birds that were around the Chernobyl area. And so there's already the nuclear power plant is related to this time incident in my mind, because of it is a huge source of power, and their forces are potentially intertwined. Okay. That might be me bastardizing science to make that work in my head.
Well, that's what TV shows do. They bastardize science.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I got a few. Last thing I want to talk about in terms of the reveals. What did you predict it, and what did you think of the stranger being Jonas reveal?
We were me and Antoinette were 99% sure, but we were just waiting for the full confirmation, because there is a lot of similarity in their faces, and they. I imagine this might be confirmed one way or the other coming forward in the seasons. I'm wondering if the coat that the stranger wears is just Jonas's coat, just fucking dyed with age and dirt, so that's no longer a bright yellow coat, but it's a dark looking coat. It's I'm wondering about that, because it's there he's always wearing that coat, and it looks a lot like the other coat.
Yeah, he's like Paddington Bear. He's always got his coat on, but unfortunately, unlike Paddington Bear, he's had to go through a post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland with it.
And unlike Paddington Bear, he is not immortal.
No,
Paddington Bear seems to be immortal, from what I understand.
Yeah, there's a weird focus on marmalade in the second season, which
it's the
that's in the first. That's in the first season. They mentioned marmalade.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now.
It's Francisca talks about when she's saying
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yelling at Magnus about her parents' marriage being falling apart, and she goes, "But have homemade marmalade." It's okay.
I was just thinking about Toast Hawaii, which you won't understand yet, Emmett. But I can't remember if marmalade was involved in that as well.
Well, I think marmalade. Obviously they put the nuclear isotope into the time travel, but the other compartment that they have is for marmalade.
Yeah, that's the sandwiches.
Yeah, you need to pack a meal if you're going time traveling. You don't know when you're going to eat again.
Yeah, well, that makes 100% sense to me. Okay, so good stuff. What we'll do, so we've talked about the casting, good stuff. It's all really great. Talked about different reveals. We've talked about all sorts of stuff. What I want to talk to you about now is, I'm sure we're going to miss a lot of stuff, guys. So if you have questions for Emmett, put them in the comments of this video, and if I missed something from season 1, we can maybe start off with a couple of follow-up season 1 questions next week. But so who's your favorite character?
Ooh, that's
and
very,
what does he
very
do?
tough.
Who's your daddy and what does he do?
Who's your daddy and what do you do? Again, it's possibly because I already have a little bit of a relationship with him from the other show that we covered.
Oh, yeah.
What was the name of that?
Tribes of Europa.
Oh,
Tribes of Europa.
You scumbag.
Yeah, Tribes of Europa. You scumbag. Again, I think it might be Ulrich, possibly just because it's very interesting that you spit. Like, he starts off as such a seemingly irredeemable bastard, and then he goes through so much trauma that you kind of start to sympathize with him. I don't think he's necessarily... I wouldn't call him a good person.
No.
But I can at least find him an engaging character.
Yeah.
And he's one of the people that we spend the most time with. Also, I'm very fond of Jonas in that, like, that lost puppy kind of way. I just kind of want to wrap him in a blanket and, like, make sure that he feels nice. And I feel like the next 2 seasons are not going to be kind to my poor boy. So I think I think Jonas and Ulrich are two of my faves, just off the bat. Ulrich in all of his forms, because even when he's a shithead bully character, he's at least like an engaging shithead bully character.
So Jonas and his grandfather are your favorites.
Yes, Jonas and his grandfather.
What about Jonas's lover, his auntie?
Yes, his aunt. God, that gets very intense. I do like her. I loved her
Marta
scene. Marta, yeah, I loved her scene during the play where like obviously she, oh god, that's so heartbreaking. Where she's just going through like the play and she's been so determined to go through it, but then she just breaks down as like everything sort of hits her, or with everything that was going on with Mikhail, and oh god, it was so tragic. And then her mum coming up and just holding her, it was just heartbreaking. Again, this show just knows where to like, just punch you in your goddamn heart.
The only thing missing of making that like really realistic with all those kids in the audience, the only thing missing was a little a distant LeBron James. That was the only thing missing.
Or like, no, I can't say that. I was just thinking, I'm thinking of some more of those things because I've definitely been around people who have yelled much ruder things during productions.
Yeah.
Oh.
Do you expect that Marta Jonas relationship to be developed at all, like, or have any implications?
Yeah, that's a tough question because it's like she's not aware of why he is currently like this, why he's becoming so distant.
They're just not a good match, Emmett. They're just not a good match.
Yeah, they're I don't want to yuck anyone's yums, but
you can yuck that yum. That's fine. We have a firm anti-incest stance here on the After Dark podcast.
Yeah,
good. I will join in with that anti-incest stance.
We don't want to kink shame anyone, but incest has medical implications that are worth considering.
Yeah.
Don't fuck your family.
Yeah.
So I feel like their relationship will develop in the sense of they will. I think she's eventually going to find out some of this shit, and that will influence their relationship. But I hope to God. Sorry to take the Lord's name in vain. I hope that they are not going to end up together romantically, because that would be gross. that would be very gross, and I would be deeply uncomfortable.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens.
You always hear about those stories, don't you, where it's like, 2 people were like giving up for adoption, and then like they meet, and those, you hear about it in like tabloid things. They meet and they form an instant connection, and they get married, and then they find out they're actually related, and it's just like, oh.
Well, you know the Beast from The Chase, a very UK-centric comment here.
Yeah.
You know the Beast from The Chase. Apparently he's been on TV in America as well, I think. But anyway, he's actually apparently married to his cousin.
Oh well.
But they're so attractive.
Yeah. But his cousin's also like 25 years younger than him.
Well.
There's a lot in there to unpack.
But he's a beast.
It's good. It's good enough for European royalty. It's good enough for me.
So Emmett, if at the end of this show we do have a lot of incest going on, I'm just going to remind you of your phrase, I don't want to yuck that yum.
Yeah.
I don't want to yuck that yum.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
All right, okay, so favorite time... Oh, okay. Now, I don't like this question because I don't think you'll have an answer, but least favorite character. And why is it Bartos? Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, but Bartos is obviously a little bit of a shithead. I wouldn't say it is my least favorite character. I will preference this as it is a character I hope gets developed further in the other seasons, because at the moment they are probably a little more unsympathetic than I think it's intended for them to be. Hannah, Jonas's mum, there's some bits with her where I'm like, this is bad. This is like, and I hope we get to see a little bit more of her in season 2 that isn't focused around Ulrich and her obsession with him, because it so defines her that it makes me wonder a lot about how much she cares about other people that are supposed to be important to her, like Jonas and Michael, who has obviously passed. For example, like, how long has this affair been going on? Was she cheating on Michael with her dad, with his dad? You know, that's
not with her dad.
Yeah, with his
not
dad.
To yuck that yum.
Again,
but,
no, not to yuck that yum. But like, in the sense of what I mean is, so the falsified rape charge is terrible. That's a horrific thing to do. You know, it can be somewhat excused by the fact that she's a child, but it's still an almost sociopathic thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, you know, to try and break two people up.
And in that scene, actually, it focused on her eyes, and she didn't blink once while she was saying to Egon, the police officer. So she, like, that's proper, like, a sociopathic thing there.
Yeah.
She was doing like a full Kubrick stare into the camera at times. But like, and then there's also the, you know, putting it off on someone else, like manipulating people, and like we see her do it in the future as well. The other thing that made me sort of worry, because like, she obviously knows the truth about Alexander, in quotation marks. Yeah, and she uses that to blackmail him. And the thing that maybe made me a little less sympathetic towards her was not the fact that she was like, I want you to ruin Ulrich. It was the sort of the preamble that she led up with. It's like, why do some people have a lot and other people have nothing? Which again I can agree with, and her being like, you can like afford all this amazing stuff. I can't pay for my electric bill. And then he's like, do you want money? It's like, no. It's like, wait, go back. Why don't you want money as well? It's like, if you're struggling, why are you using this blackmail that you've held on to for years specifically just to try and ruin a man who, you know, you're obsessed with and who was aggressive towards you in an earlier scene, and that you made rape charge? It's like, you don't care about, because that's what makes me sort of question her caring for other people and whether her obsession with Ulrich is so all consuming, because it's like, no, you have a son and you're struggling to pay bills. You could also blackmail him for money. Like, you hold all the cards. Why are you just being like, ruin Ulrich's life? It's like, no, you can still do the ruin Ulrich's life thing, but you could also be like, and also pay for my electric
so
bills.
Your main annoyance with Hannah is that she didn't extort Alexander for more.
Yes, exactly. Eat the rich, eat them, get in there, masticate on the rich, you know. But it's in the sense of like, because she is so focused on just ruining Ulrich's life that like she seems to forget everything else in her life, like including her son, and that's where I think she maybe becomes a little bit more unsympathetic than maybe intended. And I'm like, you know, because obviously her son has just lost his dad. You're struggling to like pay electric bills and put food on the table, but you're so focused on this obsession that you've had since you were a child that like you're just forgetting all about that. You're not concerned about that at all. You just want to ruin his life. And I'm like, that's the part where I'm like, I would like to see in future seasons, season 2 and 3, it's 3 seasons, yeah, that she maybe gets fleshed out a bit more. We get to see more of her relationships outside of her obsession with Ulrich, because otherwise, you know, I think I will struggle to sympathize with her at all.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing your journey with that character, to be sure. I found it, and also like at this stage for me, I felt all the same things as you towards Hannah, and I you know, overall, upon finishing the show, I reflect upon it, and I'm thinking like, you know, not to spoil anything, but Hannah doesn't beat the head of a child. You know what I mean? So.
Yes, exactly. You know,
whereas Ulrich does. So it,
100%. Like,
but that's only when you compare the characters. Which one do you not like the most? Hannah, in isolation, is obviously very sociopathic. It seems doesn't seem to have much empathy for people, and it is something that we'll look forward to being fleshed out in the future. What I want to say is though that I think we'll just spoil something for you here, Emmett, because
I think you're
want
probably going to
to
tell me. I think Ulrich is going to make it back into the present.
Okay.
Because they're setting up so much about like ruining his life in the present that it wouldn't really if he remains stuck in the 1950s. Like none of that will mean anything.
Yeah, I was going to say how is Alexander going to ruin his life?
Well, Alexander did a great job. He did a great job.
Yeah.
Immediately done.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, as soon as he went into the cave, you just see Alexander in the distance, like, good.
No,
excellent.
what I was actually going
plan.
to spoil for you, Emmett, because I'm finding it very difficult. I don't know about you, Konrad. I'm finding it very difficult to talk about Alexander without revealing his true being. Like, I actually found it very hard not to just call him Yasin. So I think we're just going to have to tell him. Alexander is Yasin.
Yeah, that's confirmed.
Do you remember Yasin, Emmett?
Yes, I wish I could do sign language and stuff like that, but I unfortunately don't know it.
Okay, so that was one of Konrad's funniest predictions, was that Yasin is Alexander.
Yep.
Yeah. He's going to get a solid prediction. It
was never disproven.
I also said that Yasin wasn't deaf mute, which obviously lends credibility to that theory.
Exactly. It's all a lie. He just wanted to start a relationship with the wee girl whose name is escaping me right
Elizabeth.
now.
Elizabeth, yeah.
The name
Yasin has the
Wee.
cold, dead eyes of a killer, is all, is all I'm saying.
Yasin is Noah. That's my prediction.
Certainly seem to know whoever that person was, like who approached him. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, it's me from the future. Hello.
Okay, so last thing we're going to need to do, actually two more things. First thing is we're going to bring back a much loved segment. Obviously, Emmett watched this in German.
I'm a good boy.
But we're just going to tell him a few of the funny parts from the dub. So we're going to go in to What the Dub.
What the dub?
Alright, so I thought I've got three of my favourite from Season 1, What the Dubs. We're going to tell Emmett about them, and he isn't going to be able to fathom them in his mind because it's so stupid. So Emmett, there was a lot of times, there was one or two times actually where they changed the script, but I'm not going to talk about that. What I'm going to talk about is three in particular performances from the voice actors, which we found was funny. So do you remember whenever Bartos found the pushed over Francisca, like the loving man he is, pushed over Francisca, took the drugs, right? And then he walked away and he went, jackpot. Do you remember that?
Yes. He's very excited about these drugs.
yeah. Well, in the this is the first ever What the Dub we did, and in What the Dub, the American actor goes, jackpot.
Jackpot.
It just I went back and watched that the other day actually, and it just doesn't capture the sliminess of Bartos's like a jackpot. like really kind of like he's just so smarmy, and the American version is just not funny at all.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that like kills me is like jackpot is such a more natural thing for an English speaker to say.
Yeah.
It's funny to me that the person who naturally speaks English struggled with that line delivery, where the German speaker was like, "I've got this, boys. I know how I'm going to say it." Jackpot.
Yeah. It was so good.
One of the best lines in the whole show. I think we can all agree.
Yeah. I would love to think that was like improvised. Okay. Next one. Regina, the character of Regina, who is Alexander's wife, Bartos's mum, is actually it's really funny, right? In the dub, every character, like every actor, is like has an American voice, right? American accent in the dub, but Regina, for some reason, has a German accent.
You need a like that. That was something like it's you either commit to.
Pretty sure it's German. Pretty sure it's German. Some other European country maybe. Don't correct me in the comments. But foreign accent anyway from America.
Yeah. So when you're doing a dub, it's unless that character is implicitly from a different place than like the other people, it doesn't really make sense to like because you want to capture the idea that they're not from the same location. So that. But Regina, she's from the town for the most part. Like, she grows up in the town, to my remembrance. So, like, she should sound like everyone else there. It's one of those things where you, like, either really need to commit to everyone having that accent in the dub, or just everyone have, like, an American-style accent. Because otherwise it, like, really would stand out. Oh, my God, that would be so weird.
It's a bizarre choice.
Actually,
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all. Another thing we realized, actually, her husband, like, because you could say, okay, maybe the influence of, like, meeting Alexander could have done that to her, or Boris. Meeting Alexander, or Yasin, sorry, could have had that effect on her, because as a teenager, she was still in Winden, so Alexander coming in, but then the dub guy for Alexander is actually like a New York gangster. He's like, get it done.
Yeah. Hey, boys.
Forget about it.
Yeah, that's what he's like.
Where's the nuclear waste? Forget about it. You don't need to worry about it.
Yeah,
Let's take care of.
Hey, I'm running the power plant here.
Hey.
All right, okay, so the last one, Emmett, is, one of my favorite things about the character of Noah is his voice. It's such a deep and commanding voice. Such an absolutely fantastic. He's just so ominous. Every time he speaks, that drone comes in, right? Well, in the dub, I can't really even do this justice, so you're gonna have to go listen to it. But he's literally like,
Sure.
"I'm Noah."
Yeah.
He's like literally.
Compare it to Mark Vashke's like bassy, ominous tones, and then the dub is just like the most unthreatening. Like he sounds like the kind of priest that you would meet at Sunday school, who's just like, just some apple juice. Like it's just gonna. Would
you like some apple juice?
Yeah, he's gonna offer you some rich tea biscuits, and he's gonna sit down and talk to you about Jesus for a bit.
It is terrible.
Yeah.
It is terrible.
He's not gonna kill any kids trying to work out time travel.
No.
God.
No.
That's
or maybe he'll kill more. Like, actually, you never know.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point.
To be fair, priests, you can never tell what they're going to do. I have relatives that are priests. I hope they're all good people.
I have relatives that are people. I hope they're all good people.
I hope they're all good people. It is that thing like with dubs and stuff like with the Harry Potter franchise. There's a lot of funny ones because like they get like a dub actor at the start when they're kids, and then that person remains like the dub person for like the whole way through. So some characters will like start off with very fitting voices, and then when it gets to like later films, like Rupert Grint, I think he has like a very high pitch actor for like all the way through. So even when he's like in his 20s standing there, it's still like this little boy voice coming out of his mouth. And it's like, oh my god.
That reminds me of the show Peppa Pig.
Yes, of course.
Right, I don't let my sons watch it actually because Peppa's a bit of a. But sorry, I do beep that word when I say it on the podcast. So there will be a beep there.
I want that phrase framed and on my wall.
I've never watched it, so like to me, you've just called a character of like the protagonist of a beloved children's show the C-bomb, which
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest. I've only seen some of them. That maybe there is something as well in the idea that if you took the features off the face, the shape of it is very much phallic-esque. We'll say. Anyway, it's I just don't like the show. In fact, when my oldest son stayed at his grandparents one time, and they didn't know, so he watched the show with them. Like he did start like saying no to us that day and stuff. I don't know. Anyway,
made him belligerent.
Daniel Tiger's where it's at. Daniel Tiger is like Mr. Rogers' puppet, and they make a cartoon about him now. He's where it's at. Anyway, my point is. That the child, they kept getting different little girls to do Peppa Pig's voice, right? And they were like on the third one. Finally, the one who did the voice the third one was the only smart one, and she was like, "Hang on, this could be a cash cow for many, many years. I'm going to go to a vocal coach and get them to teach me how to continue to do the voice even as I grow up." So they kept like replacing it, and then finally this girl was like, "No, I'm just going to keep doing the voice." And now she's been doing it for like 15 years or something, and she's like she's like 20 years old or something, and she's still doing the Peppa Pig voice. And I'm just like, the first two ones, they missed out on an awesome opportunity. Like,
respect the hustle.
Yeah.
Like that's good work on her, like having the gumption to be like, how can I keep my that's like almost like a Pikachu. I don't remember the voice actor for that, but like that's a you got yourself like money coming in for life basically, with that kind of work.
It's like Tommy
Nancy
Pickles.
Cartwright situation.
Yeah. I think Nancy Cartwright was Tommy Pickles as well. I think
She might have been. Yeah.
I think
there's a lot. Like she did a lot of young boys' voices.
Yeah. All right. Well, join us next week for season 2 of Peppa Pig. No, I'm just kidding. Last thing we want to end on with Emmett here before we go into our next segment where it's Konrad's rewatch. Last thing we want to talk about, Emmett, is Is there any, like, maybe just bullet point them for us? Is there any theories that you had going forward that we haven't talked about yet?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, obviously, I believe that Ulrich is coming back in the future. So, I think the notebook is going to be incredibly important, because it seems to be the same notebook, unless I'm getting mixed up, that gets passed around the different people. I think Noah and Claudia, probably at some point, that notebook gets passed between them. I think Claudia is the last person to hold it, because she gives it to Ulrich's father and there's page ripped out. Whereas when Noah holds the book, it seems to be completely intact. So if it is the same book, that would imply that Claudia gets it later, because you can't, like, unrip those pages out. So I think that's where it's going to be sort of wise when it comes to, like, the notebook, because it's going to be... It seems to have all the details of when people are traveling through time and stuff like that. So at some point that notebook's going to get exchanged. I'm trying to think of other theories that I have at this stage. Again, it's a bad, but this might be my Yazan theory. Maybe Bartol's is Noah, in the future. Because again, they've both got that slimy attitude at times, and they're quite manipulative, and they have a dark side to them.
I will say,
I would being like jackpot.
Yeah, jackpot.
Jackpot.
I will say, Emmett, that was a popular fan theory coming out of season 1, whenever only season 1 was out, and I too held that theory for at least a few hours. So yeah.
Yes. So that I feel that reassures me, because even if I'm wrong, at least I'm in good company for that front. So I believe Yorick is going to get to the future, and I'm trying to think of other theories that I had. Oh god, I feel like I'm forgetting all of my theories currently.
Do you mean the future, or do you mean like modern day? Because if he goes to the future, that's basically Tribes of Europa again.
Yeah, actually that would be a lot of fun. Throw him into the Tribes of Europa. Yeah, I think he's coming back to the present. 2019 is when everything is set.
Yeah.
So I think that's when he's going to be there. And I think Jonas is the stranger. I'm going to hold to my theory that he is maybe more in the know than other characters realize, and I think that basically he is maybe playing along because he knows he has to for a long period of time.
So even at the age where he's a stranger, he still thinks that everything is like sort of he needs to do what was done before, sort of thing.
Oh no, in the sense that he needs to do it up to a certain point before he can change it.
Okay.
If you know what I mean, like he has to play along with Claudia and Noah. Oh, and that was my so I think So between this is probably not obviously that impressive here. I believe that Claudia is probably the more moral of the two. Noah seems to be just a complete psychopath that's manipulating people. But I think so. Claudia is involved in all this because she wants to change the past out of guilt for the nuclear power plant incident, because she feels responsible because she helped cover everything up for years, and obviously these problems mount, and she's the person who hired Alexander and he takes over the power plant. So I think that she is attempting to change the past because of her guilt for what she did that leads to the apocalypse, or the apocalyptic future. And that's why she's involved in this, sort of time travel game situation where, like, she's playing up against Noah because she wants to change the past to avoid what came to pass, and because of her own guilt. And that's why she's doing what she's doing and staying in the shadows and sort of helping to ensure things play out to a certain extent, because she wants to try and change specifically the fact that the apocalypse happens and she is partly responsible for that, and it comes from a guilt place. So I think that's where she is as a person. I'm hoping that she is at least attempting to stop the apocalypse and not cause it. She seems more like the type of person who would try and stop it, whereas Noah seems to be the kind of person that wants it to happen. And I think if Noah is not Bartos, I think he might come from the future, in the sense of, like, he might have been born in the post-present day in the apocalypse situation, and he wants to ensure the apocalypse to ensure his own, like, birth and existence.
Okay.
And that's why he just also doesn't care about other people and wants to be able to, like, wantonly kill and have a time machine and be able to go where he wants. I don't think he's, like, originally from the 50s when we first see him. I think he's maybe from the future and came back and has been manipulating Haig since he was a boy because he needed him to be the heavy and needed him to do certain stuff that he couldn't do.
Yeah.
So I think that those are my sort of current theories. Claudia is trying to stop the apocalypse out of guilt. Noah wants the apocalypse to happen because he won't be born without it. Jonas maybe knows more than Claudia and Noah are aware of, and is thus trying to play both of them. And Mikhail is likely going to stay in the 80s. And
Ulrich is going to come back to modern day.
Ulrich is going to come back to modern day, and he's probably going to be accused of being the killer in modern day.
Okay.
Because Alexander seems to have his fingers in parts of the police station and seems to be able to influence stuff. I feel like it's going to be the unfortunate irony of he's going to escape the 50s, where he has been rightfully put in jail for nearly killing Haig and being accused of the other deaths, and he's going to get back to the future, and his mysterious disappearance for several days, the fact that he is connected to one of the disappeared boys, and the fact that Alexander is going to be manipulating things at Hannah's behest, is going to lead to him being accused of being the abductor of the boys, and likely possibly lead to him then basically getting from one prison situation to another prison situation, and manipulating things that way.
Second verse, same as the first. Right, Emmett. We'll end on
We'll
end on this question unless Konrad has anything to say. You have anything to add, Konrad, before I go to the question?
No, that's all very interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's all above board. Okay, so question is, if you want to choose someone you don't know the name of, just let us know. We'll figure out the name of them, right? But
sure.
Question is, which character who has not time traveled yet are you going to predict is going to time travel? Just one character that has not time traveled yet, who you think will time travel in the next season.
Marta. I think Marta's going to end up time traveling. I think it will come as a part of her, because she's obviously following Jonas to a certain extent and is curious about him, and maybe Bartosz as well. I feel like those three are going to end up possibly time traveling at different points.
Okay, so Jonas, Marta, and Bartosz are sort of like a triple sort of thing.
Triumvirate.
Yeah, I feel like because they've obviously got the love triangle going on.
Yeah, and
obviously because Jonas is probably going to be traveling through time a lot. Eventually, it's going to get to the stage where they get involved in time travel, and also the police commissioner from modern day. Just because she is aware, obviously, that Ulrich went back to the past, and is aware that he had looked in the cave. So I think that she's going to, because she seems to be one of the people that's most on the ball, in the sense of she is piecing together a lot of these disparate elements of the case, and I feel like she may be actually. Can I go back to when I was talking about my favorite characters? I can't remember her name right now. She honestly might be one of my favorites, just because she's got such a
police officer.
The police captain in the future, what's her name?
Charlotte.
Charlotte.
What's Charlotte? Yeah. She might honestly be
in
one
the
of
modern day. You mean?
Yeah, modern day, because she might be one of my favorites in the sense of she's on the ball. She's got a lot of shit going on in her personal life, but she's trying to make things work, and she's one of the nicer people. So again, she honestly might be one of my favorite people. So I think she's going to end up time traveling as well. So Marta, Bartosz, and Charlotte. I think those are three people that are going to end up walking through the different time periods.
Okay, awesome. Thanks very much, Emmett. I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts next week on season 2. So I don't know how to do this, it isn't quite awkward, but let's go to the next segment where Emmett won't be there.
I'm going into the cave. I'm ending up in a different time period. You're going to open a paper and be circling through it, and you're going to find my photo, but I'm old now and I'm bald because my dad's bald, and I'm going to go bald, and that will be me.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, oh no, that's where Emmett went.
Yeah. Lost to us in the 50s.
Yeah.
Alright, Emmett. See you later.
Cool. Thank you, Emmett.
Alright, Konrad. We got rid of Emmett, thankfully.
Thank God. I was wondering when that guy was going to leave.
Alright, that was a joke, Emmett. We'll keep it in. Right. Okay, so we're in to the part where you're going to tell us for 10-15 minutes about what you noticed when you were watching season 1 of Dark all over again for the first time, first rewatch. I mean, technically some of the episodes you did watch twice while you were doing notes for them, but It doesn't really count as a rewatch because you didn't know the end yet. You know what I mean?
You don't have the context of the subsequent episodes on those watches.
Exactly. So, okay. So, what do you think? What did you think of this? What did you take from it?
So I mean, the first thing that struck me rewatching season 1 was, God, remember Eric Obendorf?
Yeah. I remember him. I got a poster of him on my wall.
I was just like,
The Mist.
The Mist, very much so. Well, the Mist by the series as well as by the narrative, because boy, does he not. The
minds of everyone watching.
Yeah,
he's very much the Mist.
I just it made me laugh, and I guess that's kind of in microcosm how I feel about that first season, where you look at the narrative, and obviously there's time travel stuff, and they're going to different timelines, but it's just it's going back to that. It's really remarkable how much smaller the scope is of that first season when you compare even to the second season, really, but definitely compared to the third season, where things are just going nuts. But and I think it's really impressive that they very much like prime the audience in that first season. So, but like the fact that they do all that groundwork in the first season of of establishing these characters and establishing these different timelines means that by the time we get to the third season, they have the confidence in their audience. Just like, it doesn't matter. We're just gonna fly around all these different timelines. Like you're gonna have to keep up, guys, because there's not enough time to go through all this again. And they do a great job of it. And Eric Obendorf, I guess, is kind of that in microcosm, where it's just like, God, where did he go? Like just lost. Like poor old Jürgen Obendorf and his unnamed wife, who
Big Jürg. No, I think his wife is called.
I'm sure she has a name.
She does have a name, and I think it's the name of Peter Doppler's mother. Who was or I theorized was a prostitute, who shacked up with Helga, but I can't remember her name. Oh my god, this shows you it's been too long.
Professional.
I haven't done Dark Discussions in like a couple of weeks, and I need to do a rewatch. This is bad, right? You talk, I'll get a name.
Okay, cool. Well, so there's a couple of things that these are less like kind of plot revelations and more things that just struck me on a rewatch. So the first one, I mean, you mentioned this the first time we went through it, but I think it bears repeating, is that in the first episode, that opening kind of revolving shot of the Nielsen family around the breakfast table goes on way longer than I remember it going on for, and it's like the blocking is so good in that shot because you've got characters coming in and out of frame, engaging in conversation with different people, like actors having to move to hit their marks ready for those. Like, it's such a complex shot, and it's such a brilliant introduction to the Nielsen family. So that just really struck me as fantastic on a second watch. A couple of things I noticed, I guess, like as a broadly talking about the whole season. I think it's the first episode, it might be the second episode, when Hannah is giving a massage to Alexander, it actually focuses in on the bullet wound in his shoulder, which I hadn't noticed before. I didn't even notice it was scar tissue.
I think I noticed that, but I couldn't mention it. It's like there's going to be a lot of those. There's going to be a lot of those which I noticed that when we were watching it together, but I couldn't mention it. I think I did notice that, yeah. Of course, as we know, he gets shot when he was running through the forest.
Yeah, back when he was just simple old Yasin.
Yeah, he's a little, he's a little more stretched out version of Yasin, but he's basically all the same parts,
Yeah. So, okay, I had a question for you, just to get my head around this, because what I was trying to do was...
It's Ulla Schmidt, by the way, is the name of Peter Doppler's mother, and Ulla Obendorf is the name. It's the same name, I remember. Is that a question?
Yeah, fine. We've got there before I even had a chance to ask it, was who's Ulla Schmidt? No, The question was, so I in this first season, I was trying to basically, every time they showed a cutaway to the cave with a noise, I was like, okay, who's that coming through this time? I think the first one, in the first episode, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is Helga, right? Helga coming to collect the body of Eric Obendorf and do something with it.
Okay, so maybe there's a real answer for this. I personally think that for the most part, in the first episode, it's Stranger.
Well, okay, it could be.
Because I think it's just like he's the outsider from outside town, like kind of thing, and I think they're just setting up, revealing his face the next episode. Like that's how I sort of felt about it.
Well, so I couldn't actually remember on watching this. So this is now jumping forward to the end of season 1. How Jonas gets back here to take Mikkel through the caves. Does he use the time orb, Jobby?
No. He actually goes. Remember with Claudia? Claudia picks him up from his father's house.
Oh, he's with Claudia for like a year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Like that. To be honest with you, that to me not proves, but it's a huge indication that they kind of didn't know all the details going into season 2, because Claudia would have had the gold ball.
Yeah.
So there was no need for them to say that Jonas was with her for a year. There was no need for that.
Yeah.
But it sort of. It makes sense in terms of her teaching him.
Yeah, they just enjoyed each other's company. Just had a
I
lovely old time.
But it does speak to me that they didn't know all the details of season 3 yet. So they were sort of. Or people hate to hear this, Konrad, but they were making stuff up as they went along, as if writers of a fictional TV show would make things up as they went through.
Listen, like as someone who has tried to write things before, if you're writing like the entirety of 3 seasons of television when presumably you only have one commissioned, you're on a hiding to nothing there. Like you're asking for disappointment. That's just the realities of writing TV, folks. So okay, the first one is Helga may be stranger then, but then there's another noise at the end of episode 1, obviously, which sends the kids off running. So who's that coming through? Is that the stranger?
I'm going to assume that is Claudia. There's no reason to assume it's anyone else, because everyone would assume it's Jonas, because Jonas is coming through to get Mikkel, but he's already through.
Yeah, he's already there. Yeah.
He's already there. So I would assume that might be Claudia. Maybe Claudia took Jonas. Now, this is all conjecture, but maybe Claudia took Jonas down and is in the tunnel a little bit like Adam does in season 3 when he's telling him to go and get Marta. Maybe, and showing him Ulrich running into the cave. Maybe Claudia had him in the cave and was like, right, Jonas, you're going to go and you're going to get Mikkel and you're going to bring him back through here. And then she fucked off through the cave.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Well, I mean, we certainly know that Stranger comes through at some point in episode 1 because he turns up in episode 2.
But I honestly think that, I personally believe, I don't think there's any question on the Helga Jonas thing. I think it is Stranger Jonas coming through the cave. It's sort of like, like a Western kind of outsider comes into town.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Teaser. That's how I feel it is.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Another thing that kind of, I suppose, highlights that maybe they didn't have everything planned out ahead of time is that in episode 3, the one that's set predominantly in the 80s, so that's episode 2, I think.
3.
No, that is episode 3, isn't it?
The very end of episode 2, you see the 80s with Mikkel.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The fact that Mikkel not once mentions Jonas. And I know he's probably, we can probably infer that Jonas told him, don't say anything because everything needs to happen as it is. But I still think it's slightly implausible.
We already know that didn't happen, actually, Konrad, so it's even worse because Mikkel says that he woke up. He woke up in the morning and Jonas was gone. They slept in the cave. He woke up in the morning. Jonas was gone. So Jonas didn't even say anything to him. He just didn't explain anything.
They were definitely building the cave mechanism, building that plane while they were already in the air. I think to some extent, which is fine. It's not a criticism, but it's just when you know what actually, because I spent most of my time watching this season, being like, what is going on with Mikkel? Why isn't he saying what's happened to him? He looks like he's been roughed up a bit, but he's not saying what happened to him, which made me wonder whether he was forced through or something took him from the woods, and whether it actually involved the cave at all. And then for them to kind of land on, Jonas turned up and took him through the caves is a bit like, okay, you've stretched the boundaries of what I'm willing to accept there. But it still works.
It still works because he was doing a lot of asking about where his parents are and stuff, but not asking about where the person who brought him to this strange place is.
Is Jonas a time traveler? I feel like that's question number 1.
Yeah, and I think they probably did have an idea in their mind of what they were going to do when they were doing this. It's just that, remember at the end of season 1, they changed a lot of what they were going to do, and maybe what their plan for Mikkel, how Mikkel got there, went out the window, possibly.
Yeah. I think that's possibly true. A couple of other little things then. I still have no idea and don't really understand, beyond maybe just pure symbolism, the significance of the exactly 33 sheep dying when Egon is investigating strange satanistic goings on in the 80s.
I honestly think that that's just a little thing to put the number 33 in our mind, as well as put it in the character Charlotte's mind. I don't think like stuff like that, it's a coincidence, just, you know what I mean? I think that that's just building it up. It's easy to go back, and this is the problem which a lot of people have when they rewatch it. In the Reddit, for example, where a lot of people think they know an awful lot about the show. We'll just say they put specific importance on things that really shouldn't have the importance, and they're just dramatic effects to make you experience the show in a particular way, you know?
Yeah, I think definitely when I watched this the first time, this felt significant to me. In retrospect, it's clearly not. It's just a little, I don't know, 33 sheep. Number 33 pops up in lots of places. And to the show's credit, by this point, H.T. in the first season, we have heard H.T. Tannhaus in voiceover say the number, like talk about like the Fibonacci sequence and this idea of like 3 returning in nature and in science. So the idea of 33 sheep dying, while it's a little bit of a logical leap, it definitely kind of makes sense to me in the context of what we're talking about here. Yeah. So in terms of like big plot stuff, I think there's one thing that really stood out to me, which is that it's very clear on Rewatch, and obviously I have the benefit of hindsight with this, but it's very clear that Helga is the kidnapper, killer, with the amount of cutting between the Acorn man's activities, like see hands like putting the Acorn stuff together, and then it immediately cuts to old Helga. It's like, oh, okay, you were definitely telling us that Helga was involved in this.
Well, I think I think if I remember correctly from when we were first going through this show, I think that the Acorn Man, like carving the acorns and all, I seem to remember you missed that little tiny scene because you were making a note of something else.
I might have, yeah.
Because I seem to remember saying that we saw him making, we saw inside the cabin, and you didn't really remember when we saw inside the cabin,
Yeah, that's. I think you're probably right. Which would have helped definitely. But yeah, so it's really obvious on a rewatch that's what's been going on. Something else that struck me as well is that I'd forgotten how late Noah shows up in this season. Like you kind of feel like he's always been there, like he's been around the whole time, but he doesn't actually show up till episode 5, I think. And then he's bumped off relatively early in season 2, from what I recall. I think we get, I think, obviously he comes back in some form or another, but I think we only actually get about 10 episodes of Noah in this entire show. Maybe less than that, actually.
You mean? Oh yeah, like in his original incarnation.
Yeah, in his like original in the Prime World version of himself, played by Mark Vashke.
We get a tiny little bit of him again in episode 7 of season 3 when they go through the whole thing again. But apart from that, he is just from episode 5. Is it 5?
I think it's 5.
4 where Elizabeth meets him, and then 5. Yeah, in 5 he's at the very beginning of 5. He's talking to Mikkel in the hospital bed.
Yeah, he's mentioned in episode 4, mentioned by name at the end of episode 4, and then in episode 5 we see him very briefly, and then really he doesn't come into his own until episode 6.
So 6 episodes in season 1, and then I think he gets shot. No, he doesn't get shot until episode 7.
Was it 7 he gets shot in season 2?
So yeah, like about 13 episodes or so.
Yeah, I suppose that's a fair amount. But I mean, it's just, it struck me that it's testimony to how good a character he is, that he's not in the show anywhere near as much as a Charlotte or a Jonas or a Marta, and yet he's still right up there as one of the best characters in the series.
I would agree.
And speaking of Marta, the Ariadne monologues really take on kind of additional meaning once you know how significant Marta is to everything that is going on here. I think at the time I theorized that perhaps Ulrich wasn't her father, because she's talking about how her father created the labyrinth, when in fact, although I don't think it's fair to say Ulrich created the labyrinth, I think it goes further back in his family tree than that.
But the symbolism is there, and I've talked about this on Dark Discussions before. The symbolism is there for like Ulrich to be like the part of that big web in terms of beating Helga's head. So like in the sort of the small symbolism within that series, it works. But then it works obviously for different characters and things in a bigger scale too.
And I think it's a really interesting continuation of a theme that they don't necessarily explore as much in season 2 and 3 as they do in season 1. But this like kind of sins of the father idea where, you know, we perpetuate the mistakes of our ancestors, and in Ulrich's case, I guess this isn't really true of Tronte so much, but Ulrich perpetuating the loop by beating Helga's head in is very much akin to the kind of stuff that his grandparent or his grandfather gets up to, and it's a really interesting twist on that, but it makes the Ariadne monologue, or monologues I should say, that we get from Marta really grants them an additional weight that I didn't appreciate at the time, and it's awesome going back to those and being like, oh shit, yeah, there's a lot going on here with this.
Yeah, I think actually back when I was making Dark discussions while we were still going through Dark, and you haven't seen some of that stuff, I think I talked about like Ulrich and stuff like that in terms of the season 1 Minotaur Ariadne story.
Yeah.
But then in seasons, then for overarching of the show, like I talked about like Gary being the Minotaur of the overarching theme, because he's the beast at the middle of the labyrinth of this time travel stuff.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the song, I know we're not doing season 3 here, but if you listen to the song at the end of episode 4 of season 3, possibly, you know, Ariadne, I'm coming, that one.
Yeah.
Well, the one that you thought had to be written for the show.
The one that was 100% written for the show.
Show. So that one is actually like, and I mentioned at the time, it's a take on what if like Theseus refused the string.
Yeah.
So like, and the idea is like, you know, that Jonas was Theseus, he refused the string, and he ended up getting killed by Ariadne. You know. Anyway, it was really cool. So check out that Dark Discussions episode, guys, if you haven't already. All right. So any more, Konrad, before we wrap this whole thing up?
I'll mention one thing very briefly, talking about the music in this, is that when we first meet, or not when we first meet, but in the episode where we first meet Egon in the 80s, when Mikkel walks into the police station and starts talking to him, I'm used to Egon listening to, you know, kind of like 50s jazz and swing numbers on his radio.
Yeah.
He is listening to an absolute 80s bop on his radio, and this feels very out of character for Egon to be listening to this. Like, where's the Frank Sinatra that I'm used to him listening to?
Yeah, because in the 50s he's listened to some lovely stuff. Yeah, but can you remember the name of the song that he was listening to? No,
I didn't catch like really very much about it, but I just listened to it. I was like, this is very much my speed, which means it's 100% not Egon's speed. So guys, if you would like to hear us go through season 2 with Emmett next week, and Konrad's thoughts on season 2 next week as well, tune in Monday, the After Dark podcast on Culture Cave on YouTube, or on audio apps. You just type in the After Dark podcast. Support the channel. T-shirt link in the description, Discord link in the description, tip jar in the description, all that sort of stuff. If you want to send us a comment or an email, send adpodmail@gmail.com, or comment on the video. Give the video a like, all that great stuff. Thanks very much. Closing thoughts, Konrad? Season 1 of Dark, still really good, as it turns out.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the After Dark podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode.